Things that you need to know for entering or / when you've entered for your first powerlifting competition. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Okay, my most commonly asked question is how to know when it's the right time to enter your first powerlifting competition. Obviously, it goes without saying, you never have to compete if you want to do powerlifting, and it's an amazing experience, but obviously, if you want to powerlift and train in powerlifting, you don't have to compete. But that being said, anyone that's interested in it or might have it as like a long-term goal, these are my top pieces of advice. So I think the first thing, not boxing yourself into, I'm not going to step on the platform until I can hit these numbers or like hit X goals, because I think it just perpetuates like a mindset of until I can do these things, everything else isn't going to be good enough. Like, you don't have to be at a certain standard to step on the platform for the first time. Like, that's the amazing thing about powerlifting, is that it's supposed to be open to any ability. If you're like, until I can do these things, I'm not going to get on the platform, it does perpetuate a mindset of like, I'm not going to be good enough.
You're constantly growing, right? Never necessarily be happy with what you're going to be doing. Goals change all the time. So like, if you were able to squat, say, 100 kilos, you want to squat 110, or you want to go to your next big plate, which is like 120.
Specific to actually doing your first powerlifting competition, try not to box yourself into, I'm not going to do it until I'm at the standard, because you're always going to constantly want more. That's the goal, get better and have longevity in the sport. So yeah, like for your example, hitting a 100 kilo squat for the first time, then you're straight on to like working towards your 110 and the next milestone for every single lift. I think especially for your first competition, if you set yourself off in that headspace, then you are constantly, your whole journey within powerlifting, unless you make a really drastic shift, is going to be earmarked by that and that same headspace of, I will not be good enough until I do this next thing and next thing and next thing. So for the first competition, the goal should literally just be about having a good day. Like, I get not wanting, I think it comes from a headspace of like not wanting to embarrass yourself or like be the weakest one there. It literally doesn't matter, because the whole goal for the first one is just to go and get the experience. On a Bonda's first competition.
Yeah, pride.
That is an experience, if you can help it, that people don't want to have. So that's why I constantly say, and if you follow the series on Instagram, I'm constantly like, good experience, because otherwise it's off-putting and it's nerve-wracking. You obviously had a good experience because you had someone experienced come and speak to you.
Yeah,
but had it not been for that conversation,
Yeah.
that probably would be enough to put you off competing for life.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You know? And now look at it too, don't wait for the big sign to say, oh, you're ready. You're probably never going to feel ready. There's always going to be a million reasons not to do something, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't. So I think stop waiting until you feel ready, or for that sign, or for someone to say go for it, because there's always going to be reasons not to. Comp comes about that aligns with dates, with where you're at in training, like just go for it. I think the only asterisk next to that is, if you're going to go for it, just make sure that you know things like the rules, the regulations and the standard. The goal should be having a good day, but obviously if you aren't working with a coach, or you are but you're not familiar with it, like make sure that you're training to and are aware of the regulations of the day, so all the commands and stuff, because the worst thing is thinking you're ready, you're strong, you've peaked to perfection, you get on the platform, then you're like, oh fuck, what am I supposed to be doing?
Or if you have any questions, talk to the referees and stuff on the
Yeah,
day.
that's a big thing.
You have opportunities to speak to referees and stuff, like ask them questions, like that's what they're there for.
Yeah, it's really hard as a beginner, because I think sometimes, as much as you don't know certain things and you know where your limits are, you don't know what you don't know. Absolutely make sure that you are making the most of the people that are there in the environment, because everyone there has either been a beginner before or has probably had some kind of a bad experience, whether that's just a missed lift, a bombed out competition, like a silly mistake. We're all human, everyone will have been there before, so I can guarantee you everyone in that room will want you to have a good day. So if there's anything that you're not sure about, like go and speak to people, whether that is refs, just people that are floating about, coaches, other lifters that seem more experienced. Like, we'll probably be able to ask anyone in the room and they'll happily help you. So
especially your first competition as well. Like, regionals are going to be lovely, and like they'll help you out.
Yeah, everyone will have been a beginner before, everyone will have had a first competition before, they all know that feeling and they will just want to support you. So absolutely make use of the people.
I don't know if you thought about this one as well, but even volunteering before you do your first competition can be really handy. So you can volunteer for most powerlifting competitions anyway. They give you a little debrief. They are quite long days, but it teaches you how to spot and load, that you get to see how all the commands run. So if you wanted to go through a competition without actually stepping on the platform and lifting, you could volunteer, or at least watch one, but volunteering is you're in it, you know, and so that there's a group. It's not just all on you. We've both done it as well, haven't we?
Yeah, I've been to watch loads of competitions. Like, it is a really good way, 100%. Most comps are free to go and watch, especially regional. So if you've got one nearby, we both compete in British powerlifting. There's loads of different federations within the UK alone. Internationally, there's going to be even more. Most places will be quite accessible. Just check the websites. They'll usually have a comp calendar. So if you look and there's one coming up and you've never been in the environment before, you're thinking of entering a competition, you just want to get a bit of the lay of the land, go watch, see if it's something for you, because you'll be able to see how it runs. A lot of the time as well, you'll meet people. Like, I was actually quite surprised at how many people I connected with just doing spotting and loading.
Yeah.
Meeting other refs, like just getting to see familiar faces, especially within regionals. A lot of the same faces will pop up as well, so it's a nice way to just get a bit more of the community aspect, because obviously powerlifting can be kind of a lonely sport because it's an individual thing, so that's also a very good way to get involved. Top things for doing your first competition in terms of just thinking about entering and knowing when you're ready is, don't box yourself in with the certain numbers. Don't expect to ever feel 100% ready, and don't use that to put you off if you don't, because we've all been there. What else have I said?
I zoned out a little bit. I was looking at the pigeons. So.
Oh, make sure that you're familiar with commands, just more so you don't have nasty surprises, so you can train to those standards in your training. And then, yeah, definitely the fourth one is, if you are nervous about it and it's just a thought of like not knowing what the fuck's going on that puts you off, go watch or volunteer, because they are great ways to get involved and just dip your toe in the water before you have to think about entering. Obviously, then the next bit is, if you have or are thinking about entering your first competition, these are the things that I would want you to know about as well. Number one, work with a coach. Like, it goes without saying that it's going to make your life so much easier. Whether you're the most advanced lifter in terms of strength, like, but you are new to powerlifting, it's a whole different ball game. So you're going to want someone that's actually going to be able to support you, actually write your programs for you. It's just more, I think, about having that guidance. Like, I know when I was a beginner powerlifter, the programming and stuff, obviously it's fucking important because it means that it's going to get you from A to B, but more than anything, the thing that I needed was the support. Like, as much as it can be such an exciting time, it can feel really fucking overwhelming. Like, there's a lot of build up, a lot of angst and stuff. You want and need that guidance and support.
I think also another thing with a coach, it obviously great when you're having a good day. One big thing I would say is they do ground you quite a lot. So it is very easy to kind of do that massive jump, but I think grounding is a big thing from a coach.
Because you just, obviously, working with a coach and having like a set structured plan anyway is going to make that day far more predictable, but there are some things that just happen. I've had it with clients before where they will literally, like, let's say miss a lift on a technicality or a command, and they will freak out, like, sorry, the window's open, it's very loud. And every lifter is different. You don't know how you're going to respond on the day, and there's a lot of figuring out to do for that first competition. Like, being in that environment, you literally have no context or previous experience to know how you're going to react to certain things. And absolutely having a coach there on the day to hype you up when everything happens the way that you want it to is unreal. But there is a lot more, I think, to be said, especially when you have familiarity with a coach, when things maybe don't go as well, because that absolutely is a possibility. So having someone that's going to be able to support, ground you, walk you through. So I think just for having a good experience, taking all of that pressure off, knowing that you're supported and being guided through, just work with a coach. Make your life easier.
Sorry. Let's just start recording.
Second thing is, in the lead up to the competition, follow your fucking program. Like, we've all been there, especially for someone that's working with, like, let's say RPEs. Obviously everyone coaches differently. RPEs, there's a little bit more like subjectivity, which is the whole benefit of using RPEs. It's perceived exertion, but it's really easy, I think, for your first competition just to go, oh my god, I'm stepping on the platform, oh my god, I have to be my strongest self, oh my god, I have to push my training. And I've been there. My first competition, I did this a lot for that first prep, overshooting. And I think it's so easy when you don't know. Like, that's the whole point of working with a coach, is educating yourself, having that support. But when you've not been through it before, it genuinely will take a couple of preps for you to realise the impact of fatigue and knowing what actual peaking is supposed to look like. And usually it entails being a lot more conservative a lot more of the time than you would think. So I think this headspace of like, oh my god, I have to push, can really fuck yourself over, because the whole point of peaking is literally being at your peak at the right times, i.e. comp day, and making sure that you're not pushing too hard before that, because all that fatigue is going to really build up and you're going to peak at the wrong time. But there's a reason people say trust your coaches and follow the program, because constant overshooting, especially in a time like your prep, is just going to fuck you over. Follow your program.
Yes. I haven't got anything to say.
Solid.
Yeah, literally just follow your program.
Third thing, again, just because we're on like prerequisites, weight classes. I genuinely so wholeheartedly stand by the fact that your first competition should just be about getting the experience and trying to make it as good of a one as you possibly can, and that is going to entail minimizing as many variables as you can. And weight class is a huge one. It's just going to be a regional, it's just going to be your first competition, it might even just be a novice competition. Just give yourself the easiest possible ride. Trying to cut weight is just a stress that you do not need to worry about.
Even if you're a kilo out, don't cut. Like, what is the point? As a new lifter, just build, you know. If you're starting your first competition and you're having to lose a kilo to get into the lower weight class, it's probably not the class that you're going to be competing in the long term. Build on your future self is the best way to do it.
The two biggest things is literally longevity, because that should always be the aim with a sport like powerlifting. You just want to make sure that you're in it for the long haul and everything you're doing is preserving that. I think just ask yourself, what would be the point? Like, if you're dropping 3 or 4 kilos for your first ever competition.
I think for most people, like even more competitive powerlifters.
Oh yeah,
like,
long down.
It's not usually worth it.
Way down the line, like unless you are that exemption of, if I cut it, I'm gonna win fucking everything at a national or international powerlifting competition, then fair. Like, it's a very drastic measure, but with huge payoff. For everything else, the risk to reward payoff is probably gonna be next to nothing. So especially for your for your first powerlifting competition, just stay in the class that you're currently sitting at. It's going to be far fucking easier. You're going to actually make the most of that prep. Long term, you're going to be able to grow into the class. I just think this notion of, oh, I'll just cut is really detrimental, and what's the fucking point? Especially if your first one, just don't even factor in the weight cut. It's not worth it, and it's very rarely worth it.
Especially if you are younger as well, like you still haven't grown or anything yet. Even if you are just going to the sport a little bit older, you're not going to build all of that muscle mass which you're going to be using. And also, the more muscle you have, the more potential of strength you can have. If you want to compete in a strength sport, you need as much muscle on that frame as you possibly can.
If you want big girl lifts, you have to eat big girl meals.
Amen.
But I was going to say, in terms of like setting goals, obviously we've talked about like knowing that you're ready, not trying to box yourself in or anything like that. When it comes to setting goals for your first competition, like I will always stand by, unless you're like not that far off like a new total PB, maybe you want to push for like a new PB and a squat or a deadlift, as long as it's not an overreach and you're risking like, there's like a 50% chance this may or may not happen, and then you end up like missing lifts, there's a good chance that you walk away from the competition feeling a bit deflated. I found, especially early days, I found it quite difficult to detach my like self-worth from the goals that I was achieving. After competitions, I would always get really bad like comp blues. I think that's why I say just try not to box yourself in as much as possible with very specific numbers, very specific goals. Yeah. Exactly that, because then you've got a lot riding on that competition, and it's your first one. You have no experience like prior to that, so let that first experience be nothing but a positive one. If you get bonuses like a PB, unreal, let them just be bonuses. Like, I genuinely stand by the goal for your first competition, having a good as day as possible, and that's usually going to entail going 9 for 9. So yes, you might be more conservative in the choices you're making, but I can guarantee you're going to walk away from that day being like, I'm actually quite glad that I did that, as opposed to it being, very 50-50. If you hit it, unreal, but there's also a 50% chance that you might not hit that, for example. So yeah, I'd always stay on the side of like caution and being conservative over fucking gunning for it and having a good chance that you might miss lifts and therefore have a bad experience, because like I say, longevity should always be the goal, and if there's a chance that you might put yourself off the sport altogether, competing altogether, don't take the risk.
Quite a good analogy could be like treat it almost how you would an exam. Don't think of it as scary like that, but if you revise for the exam, you know all of the rules, all the regulations, you'll be absolutely fine in the exam. However, it doesn't prepare you for what the exam environment's like. So for a competition, you're always doing all of your lifts. What you want to do is read that rule book, get a coach which knows what they're doing, so you understand what competition is going to be like. But as soon as you step on that platform, you've never been in that environment before, and nothing can teach you that. But your practical exam for your driving test, like how different that is from doing your lessons week in, week out, doing your practical, you're on your own out there, you're doing your own thing, and it could be scary, and you obviously got nerves, so make it as easy as you possibly can at the beginning. That first squat, no matter how many times you compete,
fuck me,
it is scary.
It's just the first squat. Once I've got that out of the way, it'll be fine. Every competition is different, every ref is different. Yeah, just absolutely give yourself the easiest possible day just to go, what was that actually like as an experience? It doesn't matter about the lifting, it doesn't matter what you hit, because the first competition, you're just going to see if you get on with a powerlifting competition, and that should be the goal, I think. Yeah. Let's have a little chat about openers, because as I say, for the most part, most people will be working with a coach. But whether you're working with a coach and they've set an opener and you're a bit like, oh my God, that seems really low, or you don't have a coach and you're thinking about entering, open easy. Like, I've seen it so many times at competitions. People get carried away. They're like, oh, I'll just secure like a number that I've hit in training before. But either then they'll bomb it, or like it was very fucking touch and go, or they miss it on command. So just a note in general to say that your opener should feel easy. Almost think of your opener as like you're still warming up on the platform. Your third attempt, that's the big one that you're going for. It's not about opening and going, yes, I've got a number on the board. It's thinking about where you go from there. So always work it backwards. You might have an idea of where you could end up, like a rough range of what you want to hit, capable of hitting. But your opener, you are still warming up on the platform. Like, it's so easy. I've seen it time and time again. People being like, oh my God, I opened up really light, or like my coach suggested this and it just seems really fucking low. That's the point. Your opener should be easy.
I want to add to that as well, actually. Opener, no one cares how heavy your opener is.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, like I'm ahead on openers. No one cares. If you see someone do that opener, it's maxed out, everyone's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And also, like, you're probably not going to get another one of those again. So, like,
you're capping
coming
yourself
easy.
immediately. Yeah, literally. Yeah. Right. Get a handler.
Get a handler.
So a handler is someone that is there to handle you on the day. So basically, the aim of a handler should just be to make your day as easy as possible. Whether that's a coach, for some people, like, coaches might not be as local, so they'll have like a friend. Obviously, you want a handler to be like well versed in the powerlifting scene, so they'll be there to like help with all of your time management. So in the warm-up room, just letting you know when you need to be doing all of your warm-ups. It means you don't have to touch a plate, so they'll be loading the bar for you. Just make sure that you are where you need to be, check you out where you are in the flight to make all of those decisions. Biggest thing is obviously they will be the person with you when you're on the platform, obviously not on the platform with you, but there, to then help you make your decisions about attempts. So they will watch your lift. You'll probably have an idea whether or not your coach has had a discussion with you before, and you maybe have like a set in stone plan, or you've got like reaching and conservative aims. Your handler will be the person that hands in your attempts. The reason I say, especially for your first powerlifting competition, but basically for any fucking competition, get a handler, because you want to be able to just switch off, be in the zone and execute. But for your first competition as well, I think you said this earlier, after you step on the platform, obviously you've got 60 seconds to do your lift. You've also then only got 60 seconds after you do your lift to hand in your next attempt. It goes so fucking quickly. So if you are not familiar with the powerlifting competitions, commands, whatever. So let's say you take an attempt and you fail a lift. For your first powerlifting competition, you've got 60 seconds to then process what's just happened, what they're saying, how to fix it, and then add in your next attempt to make an informed decision about what's going to be the best port of call in that situation. That's a lot of fucking pressure for your first competition. So having a handler, as I say, should just take all of your stress off you. They're going to be able to observe objectively what's just happened. They'll know the commands, what you maybe need to do, and based on that last attempt, what the next one is going to be in terms of a sensible decision. And they're going to be able to take into account maybe what your goal was for that competition. Like I say, first one's probably just going to be having a good day. So they're just going to want to make sure that you get redemption on that next lift. So honest to God, for any powerlifting competition, get a handler, but especially for your first one, just to make it a good experience, get a handler. And obviously, headspace is such a huge thing with lifting. So let's say you take a second attempt or something like that, and you're like, oh my God, I was really gassed with that. And you're someone that gets really excited. Handler puts in your next attempt. If you're reeling and you let that get away from you, you've got to get back in the game for your third attempt. So like we said earlier, having someone to ground you is really important on the day. You're someone that's like that as well. You get really fucking amped. I've handled him once at a competition. Oh my God, it was so stressful. It's so stressful.
The morning session.
He gets so beyond hyped.
45 kilos. Yeah.
So actually having someone that just goes, right, okay, you do your thing, but now I need you to get back in the zone and go do the thing that you are here to do. like there's some people that fall in that category. There's other people that just are a bit all over the place, away with the fairies and need grounding. I think the other side of the coin, let's say you do fail a lift, people can get like beside themselves because it's so much pressure, and you can put a lot of pressure on yourself. And again, having a handler just to bring you back to earth, like give you the pep talk that you need, especially if you fail something like a second, you've got to go back out there. Just actually having someone handler that knows you as a person or as a lifter, making sure that your headspace is where you need to be. It's a lot of emotion in that day, so you just want to make sure that you're not on your own processing everything, because you're probably going to be overthinking stuff. Get a handler. Is there anything else? I'm just going to do the next one without you. So kit. This might be a bit of a rogue opinion, but especially if you're entering your first competition, you're like not sure if the sport is for you. One of my friends did this, her first powerlifting competition. Actually, if you watch the vlog of the first official Fed competition that I did, May of 2022, one of my really good friends, Ellie, did it with me. She ended up getting all her kit literally from Facebook Marketplace for like a fraction of the price. I know for your first competition, it's a heavy investment. Let's say you have been working with a coach, you've then got to pay for your membership, you've then got to pay for the entry fee, possibly even like travel expenses, whatever, depending on where you're competing. Then all of the competition gear, which you don't actually need for training. Obviously for training, you could kind of use whatever. Competition, you have to have comp specific specs. And you have to have the singlet, the comp tee, the deadlift socks, etc. So it's a lot of money. So I'd say just for that first competition, if you are just doing it to test the waters and see if powerlifting is your thing, like you don't have to spend all of that money. So I'd recommend just look at places like Vinted, Depop, Facebook Marketplace, even just ask other lifters if they've got kit that you can borrow, because it's a heavy financial investment if it's not something you're 100% sure about.
The only problem is if you go onto obviously the second-hand sellers, they're not going to tell you if it's approved or not. If it's a brand like A7, SBD, Strength Shop, I bought a lot of my stuff from Strength Shop, and they are a lot cheaper.
There's always going to be cheaper stuff, but you want to make sure that if you are going for the cheaper stuff, it is still approved. Yeah. If you're not sure, the best route is always to go for the bigger, more expensive brands. But obviously, if you don't have the investment or you're not sure if you're going to stick it out, like stuff like a singlet, they can be a lot of fucking money.
And you're not going to wear it that much as well.
No, I wore my A7 one 3 times, and then I've upgraded to an SBD one. But that's what I'm saying. So first one, if you can get something off Marketplace, just go and see. And then if that works for you, great. If you need to upgrade or buy a new one, then at least you know you're going to have that for years. Like a singlet, most people would just buy the one. Not him.
I have like 10, yeah.
He has every single, bar like some really old limited edition or vintage ones. You have every single fucking SBD singlet. So here's the exception. You absolutely do not need to do him, but then you don't buy like other gym wear. I have so much gym wear. So like, basically my point is if you are starting out and you're not sure if it's for you, don't feel the need to invest in kit. You can get it secondhand, or you can go for cheaper brands and versions. But obviously if you are more invested, like there's so many things that you can get. I would say just don't feel the need to get pulled into all of the super expensive clouty stuff that you maybe don't need, or you haven't given the sport time to figure out what works for you.
So much richer than you powerlifting.
Oh, literally.
How much you got left to do?
I don't know. So that is basically everything I think you need to know for leading up to doing your first powerlifting competition. So like once you've entered it, this is all the stuff to consider and make sure that you are doing/have done. If I've forgotten anything else, obviously add it to the comments, especially if you're an experienced powerlifter. Just pop your opinions, advice, anything below as well, because I think that'll be really helpful. Solid. Right. The day itself.